Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining, I think, our 8th episode of How Would You Slice That at a special time and also just a few minutes late. If you're not familiar with the show, we meet on Tuesdays that are prime numbers, like June 11th. And we try to combine just community conversation time, meeting a maker in our community, and then also join that with slicing tips, maybe strategies or some tutorials. Today, as always, I have my co-host, which is Dr. Lawrence Nightingale. And if you're not familiar with him, he is an educator and 3D printing advocate from Alexandria, Virginia. And he's facilitated the instruction of 3D printing for over 500 people in the Northern Virginia area. He's been 3D printing for 11 years, and his first platform was a very early wood frame Prusa i3. Lawrence has been a presenter at the National Maker Faire. He was one of our initial speakers at ERRF 2018, and he's done extensive research on the effect of 3D printing for community college students. Thank you for joining me, Lawrence, at this earlier time.
Thank you, Vicki. It's always good to be with you. I appreciate the opportunity to co-host and talk about all the exciting things in the community. And of course, my co-host is Vicki Soma. Vicki is one of the early pioneers of two-color, multicolor 3D printing. She is one of the people who has designed and executed designs for actual Hollywood productions. One of her 3D prints is a character in a movie. She is an advocate for women in STEM, and she is also a stalwart in our community in helping to organize and execute 3D Printopia currently. Previously, the East Coast Rip Rap Festival, in which is a wonderful way for our community to come together and share experiences and knowledge and resources for building and growing the practice of 3D printing across the East Coast. So thank you so much for having me, Vicki. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. All right, and yeah, even since we started the show a few minutes late, we want to go ahead and just roll right into our guest. So our guest today, on their website, they have they've been labeled as a polymath, and I'll admit it, I had to look up the term, and I have to say the definition. A person of wide-ranging knowledge or learning is the perfect description. They do 3D printing, they do electronics, they do traditional art like painting and ceramics, and then they combine all of these skills together, so they are truly a multi-disciplinary artist. And then one particular skill that may fly under the radar is teaching and documentation. I have recently purchased and assembled their ultimate picture frame, and the documentation is some of the best that I've seen. Their work has been seen on Make and Hackaday and Tom's Hardware, but perhaps most notably, they were one of my personal highlights of the Virtual ERRF 2020 that we had to do during COVID. So please welcome Allie Katz from Katz Creates.
Oh my gosh, you said so many nice things. I was just kind of like over here blushing. The nicest introduction. Thank you so much, Vicki.
Oh, you're very welcome. You're well worth it. Yeah.
It's, you know what, I still think that being told that I have great documentation is still, I think, one of my favorite compliments, because it's one of those, I put so much work into it and not everyone appreciates it. So when someone appreciates it, I'm like, yes, everything is as it should be.
All right.
But obviously, when it came to the ultimate picture frame, it was really important because it was like, this is something I want everyone to be able to do. And also, I'm asking for a little money. So like, I feel like in exchange for that, you should get everything, everything you could possibly need to get this done.
Sure. And, you know, for people that aren't familiar with the ultimate picture frame, let me pull it up real quick.
I was going to say, I have one on my wall behind me.
Oh, yeah, there it is. We'll make you solo layout, so you can see.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's because I've got a very short focal length. I do apologize, as there is a bit of a swear word on it. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
We're not monetized, and we don't have aspirations for that.
To be fair, I didn't make the art. The art's great though. But again, the frame is obviously like this is the ultimate picture frame. And I love that you can do with just again with a filament swap, you can get this nice kind of like multicolor effect with the inner rings being different shades if you want. Again, you don't have to, but this is an example of it, and just one of infinite examples, because again, it's got virtually no limits. You can pretty much make frame of any size, and that's without even getting into the CAD. So yeah, this is I love it. Yeah, there's some photos.
Yeah, so yeah, this is from Allie's website, and I think this little blue one is an example where you did the filament swaps, where the inner trim is all blue, and then it went to
it's fun. But even like the one where it's all different colors is like it's fun. I like the fact that you can do a wide range, but also just like the pure black, like kind of the standard classy frame is great. I mean, it's 3D printing, isn't it? Like the limitations are pretty much the filament you have and your own imagination. So it's one of my favorite parts about the ultimate picture frame is simply the fact that you are not limited in the same way you would be with like a store-bought frame. You can
and you can pivot in the middle. I recently did one of Allie's ultimate picture frames, and it's my intentions was to do it all purple, and then I realized it was going to take a long time because this is what.
So you split it up 2 printers.
Yeah, so I split it up into 2 printers, and I really like the effect of it.
Yeah, you alternated. It looks nice, but you also showed that like you can do on non-standard dimensions. Like yours is really is quite landscape, isn't it? It's like quite long, and not as tall, which I think is again, this is the joy of it is you're not restricted to a frame of a particular set of dimensions or size. You were able to do one that was definitely a non-standard size, and it looks great.
Yeah, I think my picture didn't show. Everybody trust Allie. It looks great.
It looks great. Yes, trust me. I'm the expert. I know about the frame better than anyone. So if I say it looks great, then there you go. That's the truth.
It's gotta be true.
And then
so Allie,
while we're real quick, sorry, Lawrence. If you are interested in an ultimate picture frame, which I highly recommend, my mom already has a queue of things that she wants us to print frames for. Just go to the katzcreates.com, and there is a section on the ultimate picture frame where you can purchase it. And there's also a free one on printables.
Yeah. If you want to try it, try before you buy. It's not like it's terribly expensive. I'll be honest. It's less than probably buying a single picture frame off of Amazon even. But if you want to try before you buy, you can get a free A6 size, which for Americans might be less useful than Europeans, which is basically just the corners, and that lets you try it out. But if you're feeling like you trust me and other people who've come before, just go ahead and jump into it. I do feel the need to warn, just in case there might be a cat. He's slinking back and forth like he's contemplating coming up to say hello. So just in case nobody is immediately alarmed by a cat. In fact, actually, it is the cat that's in the big portrait with the 4 framed on my website. That is my cat. That is a portrait I have done of my cat. So that is the cat who may or may not join. He's contemplating at the moment.
We will definitely be on the lookout. I don't have any cats here, but
because we were running late, we didn't give you this usual pep talk where you don't have to worry about special guests or technical problems.
I figured nobody would mind, but it's nice to not have it be alarming when there's suddenly like a cat butt, you know, like
Mhm.
it's you know, you just being aware of it. But
Yeah,
yes, this is the free version of the frame if you want to try it.
right. That looks great. Now, one question, Allie, that I had about your one thing that is really, really important to you is the idea of the accessibility of design, and
Yes.
you talk extensively about designing things for people who maybe have the full spectrum of printers. So can you talk a little bit about how you kind of came to that? How you
The
decided
accessibility
that
bit,
the accessibility bit, because that is a very, very, very unique to you, I would say. It's
which
crucial,
it
but it's
shouldn't
unique to
be.
you. It should not be,
It
but
shouldn't be.
we're talking about it because it's important and we want to get more people doing it.
So specifically around 3D printing, because I can definitely say that like my passion for accessibility, I think, comes from a range of things. But specifically for 3D printing, a lot of my desire to make very kind of easy to make accessible prints was from the fact that my very first 3D printer was just absolutely tiny and garbage.
Mm. Yeah.
It was a Flash Forge Finder.
Okay.
And those have a print bed of 13 by 13 by 13 centimeters. They're
Oh, goodness
so
gracious.
small,
Okay.
so incredibly small. And they're not terribly amazing. So I found that when I was first getting started in 3D printing, that I actually couldn't print a lot of things that I found and downloaded because they required a bigger printer than I had. So I liked the idea of designing the frames in such a way that even if you had a smaller printer, and I feel like these days most people have one that is probably at least like maybe 18, like I'm thinking of like the Prusa Mini size, for example, like, but some people might still have smaller ones. I wanted it to be done in such a way that even if you had a small printer, you'd still be able to print pretty much all of the pieces. You might not be able to print as many at a time. Like, again, you got a bigger print, but you can just fill it with frame pieces. Like you can kind of do it all in one go. But if you have a smaller printer, then you can still print the frame. You just can't print as many pieces at a time. Like you're not limited by the printer you have. And another aspect of the less about the design and more, I think, about the way I released the files that was kind of me having accessibility in mind, was to release pieces of different tolerances.
Yes.
Because not all printers are the same. You know, I have Prusas and I have Crealities. And I tell you what, they don't print the same, you know, like, which isn't to say that one is better than the other, simply just that they have different tolerances. Yeah. And so if I printed the exact same files on one printer that I printed on the other, they wouldn't fit. They'd either be too tight or they're too loose. So I knew that what I didn't want is, again, oh, well, if you've got a printer with, you know, excellent tolerances, then you can print this. But if you don't, then you can't. That didn't seem particularly fair. So I released 4 versions, basically.
4?
Yes, 4, because it needs to be a good fit. You don't want them to fall apart, and they need to be able to go together. So with 4 different options, I felt as though that covered 95% of use cases. And it's one of those things that, frankly, if somebody gets in touch with me and says, I've tried all 4, none of them work, can you help me? I will help them. I will make them custom set, you know, that fits them. I've had this happen all of once.
So this ties into what we were doing with Al when he was the guest. We talked about failing fast. And so Allie has, when you purchase their ultimate picture frame, they have all of the little test pieces, and they're small. So if they don't work, you fail fast. And so they do have the 4 separate tolerances, and you test and see what works. Now I did switch gears on my picture frame, and so some of the pieces, and I can share it now. Here you go. Some of the pieces were done on the Prusa, And some were done on the Bamboo A1 Mini, which is also a testament that you can do a small printer with that. And I really lucked out because the tolerances were fine. They meshed really well together.
That's really lucky. I was actually going to say, I was like, did you have an issue with putting together the pieces from two different printers? Because I imagine that could go. That could be tricky. But I mean, I guess the way that you would potentially test that is you print one side of a test piece on one printer, you print the other side of the test piece, and then I guess, yeah, like there's a way to accommodate for it.
Absolutely.
But it's I suppose it's a more it's a fringe case a little bit maybe. But even so, I'm glad that you tried it and found out that it worked, and like that's excellent. It's really, really good. I'm really glad to hear.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wanted my picture frame. Yeah, I wanted it ASAP, so it made sense to to divide and conquer there.
I mean, there's a reason why we have more than one printer usually, and that's because we want things now.
Well, or we've got a really bad habit that we just can't shake.
Also that.
That's why I've got multiple printers. No, Allie, have you ever seen something that maybe was like a harder or more difficult thing to print? Maybe a little bit intolerant, let's just say. Have you ever redesigned something to make it accessible intentionally, or is that you're strictly your own original design and execution?
No, absolutely not. I honestly still think that one of my favorite parts of kind of the 3D printing community at large is simply the fact that people really like to just make stuff and share it. It's wonderful. It's truly heartwarming. And so when it comes to slightly more like, I hate to say generic feels like the wrong word, but like non-crazy custom things, I suppose. I will absolutely, I will look on printables first, you know? I will look online and see, has someone else already done this thing? And a surprising amount of time, yes, they have. And so I will print things that people have designed. That said, I have absolutely taken things that people have designed and I've redesigned them a little bit for my own needs. But for, I feel like for the most part, there is either I don't do a ton of remixing, I suppose. Like it's mostly either I'm getting other people's stuff or I'm designing something from scratch myself. And if I am designing something from scratch myself, 9 times out of 10, the accessibility of it is in mind from the beginning. That 1 time out of 10 is when I'm making something that I don't intend to share, which is rare, but it does happen. I'm realizing that I have an example. I have to stand up to get it though, because it's up high on a shelf.
Do you want me to remove you from the stage for privacy while you?
Oh no, I'm not that fussed. But also, I feel like a better way to show it might just be on my website, because it is on my website, and it is one of my most recent projects. It is the Dynamax ball, and the Dynamax ball is extraordinarily complex.
Yes, and
people are I take it to events with me a lot of times, and people are frequently shocked to learn that it is almost entirely 3D printed. Obviously, the electronics are not 3D printed, and there are three pieces of metal in the main body. That's it. The hardware on the outside to attach the strap and the hinge. Everything else is, and springs. There's a few metal springs. That's it. Everything else is 3D printed. And that blows people's minds. They're absolutely flabbergasted at the fact that you can 3D print all this stuff and it will work. That said, the design is not in a state that I would actually feel comfortable sharing.
Oh, okay.
Because I encountered a lot of issues with it as I was doing it. This was an unfortunate case of very hard to test certain aspects of the design before just doing the final print. Obviously for the small Pokeball, that was less of an issue. That was again, it's small, like it's easier to do test prints. I was able to do like little slices of my design to do some test fitting, but where I usually ended up having issues with this design was with the full size pieces, with the weight. It was less the that pieces weren't necessarily fitting together as they should, but there was some tolerance issues with the full size pieces that I wasn't getting with small pieces, and there was weight issues. So the design was actually created in such a way to be snap and press fit and like friction hold, because I hate glue. I am very pro things being able to come apart again for maintenance, especially if they contain electronics. And unfortunately, the weight of this was just too much. Basically, physics was working against me. Gravity was working against me.
Wow.
And so I ended up having to glue stuff. And that was not the original design. It was not meant to be like that. So there was problems, basically, because there was so, in spite of the fact that it looks just like a simple orb, it is so not simple. And there's a lot of things working together here. There's a lot of design elements that just, some of them were not quite there. Enough for me to get a finished piece, not enough for me to feel comfortable sharing with other people, because I know they would run into the same problems I did. But also, in this case, I don't actually have the time to redesign it either. So this is one of those rare cases where I was just like, this is
a one-off.
This is a one-off. It also took 18 months or so. Maybe closer to a year, somewhere between a year and 18 months. It took a long time between the actual like research and R&D, because I had to do a lot of testing, a lot of trial and error to get that effect for the lights. Not simple, definitely not simple, but I got it. Like, it was one of those things that was the most important part, and I nailed it. So I was like, all right, I'm happy with this. Like, this is good. But then again, the actual design and the fabrication took a very long time. Was the
Dynamax ball, was that what first got you into experimenting with electronics? Because some of the things that you say, that how did you find
this is one of my more recent projects.
Okay. Yeah, how did yourself experimenting with electronics? I mean, you actually list some of the stereotypes that I find particularly pernicious. Women don't do STEM and all these things like that. So tell us how you found yourself moving into conquering and utilizing electronics in such a creative and effective way.
Well, I definitely feel like there's two aspects to this. One was simply my own desire to harness the power of electronics, because I could see other people doing it. And I was like, this is so cool. Like if only I could do electronics, I could unlock so many things. Like there was a real strong desire, but I was scared. I was really scared. And so what actually ended up allowing me to do it, and it's funny because it's right here, so I can grab it. The Spark Fun Inventors Kit.
Oh, all right. Okay.
And actually, I was able to partner with Spark Fun to do a 5-part live stream of the kit, to kind of just demystify electronics a little bit, but also to show that like something like this is fun. And it actually, the thing that I said the most whilst I was doing it, and I stand by this now that I know a little bit more about electronics, but I'm not an electrical engineer. There's lots of terminology that I don't know, concepts that are beyond me. And the thing about the Inventor's Kit that I thought was the most incredible was the fact that there was no assumed knowledge. It wasn't working off the assumption that you already know what current is, or you know the difference between voltage and amperage. And it broke things down into manageable pieces and explained everything. And so, yeah, there we go. Oh God, I was gonna say this is back with the old branding. This is how long ago it was now. And old hair too. My hair's a lot longer here, but it was a lot of fun, and it it very much took a lot of the fear out of me, because again, I had this fear of breaking things. I had this fear of hurting myself because it's electricity, you know, and that's scary. But I was gonna say, oh good, I think my camera is in fact still working. Just gonna say, for a second I was like, please tell me my camera didn't die. It is still there.
No, we got
the
you.
screen, it's we're all good. We're all good. But yeah, it absolutely demystified things and helped a great deal. Honestly, what also ended up helping me get over the fear was I decided to do some like minor modifications to my Creality CR10S Pro, and I basically wanted to move the filament sensor. And so I had to unplug and replug things in because there's a little breakout board on it. And guess who plugged something into the wrong thing?
That was me. I did that. Definitely.
Did you let out the magic smoke then? Because I let out the magic
times
smoke.
On very expensive boards, over and over and over. Yes, I definitely have.
Thankfully, mine was not an expensive board because it was just the breakout board. Like the damage was mitigated, so it was like 15 pounds to replace. Not a big deal, but it was that thing of I did the thing I was afraid of. I let out the magic smoke. I broke something.
Yeah.
And everything was fine. The world didn't end. You know, like I learned very quickly what not to do. And
that's from failure knowledge.
Yes.
Well, this is it. Failure is some of the best lessons. So I think that I needed to fail a little bit, and that kind of kickstarted my learning experience. And like I said, it kind of quelled the fear. So from there, it was off to the races, basically.
Wow.
I have very quickly jumped, like for each of my electronics projects have been like a major jump, I think. And that's because that's how I like it. I like it feels like there's almost no risk, no reward kind of thing. Like I not that I necessarily think that's exclusively true, but for me, it's been a good learning. It's been a good way to learn. As I say, behind me is my most recent completed thing, which, if I'm lucky, I will have the video about it done very soon, like maybe even this week.
All right.
Crossed. But it's the final version of a name badge. I've made a few of these, and previous versions, like I've explored a lot of things. In fact, actually, like there is like this is one of the previous versions, which is just let's say hilariously enough, if I hold it up to my face, it's in focus. This is just there we go. Thank you, camera. Right. So good. These are just like little tiny let's grab a battery. Let's grab a battery and then I can actually turn it on. This one is just like color cycling LEDs. Hilariously enough, that I got from like a little like kind of model shop that I guess for people who make like model train sets and stuff like that. So this one just color cycles. That's it. It's there's no microcontroller in this. It's just the LEDs. They are RGB, but they do just kind of color cycle, which is it's fun. And again, it's got a little, you know, a little front cover that is
Are these
all 3D printed again.
The same ones you did for your nurses?
Yes. Well, the nurses was version 1 basically, and the nurse ones were considerably more simple. They just had 4 little lily pad LEDs, and then obviously when I started making them for myself and I wasn't having to make them repeat like over and over again, I was definitely like, I can go a little bit more complicated with this. So like again, the case is all 3D printed. The front is all 3D printed. Yep, these are the version 1. Yep, my nurses' name badges, which they loved them, by the way. Awesome. They lost their minds. They didn't know what to do with themselves. It was definitely one of those like, I don't think they knew what they were getting into when they had me in their ward. Like I was not the standard patient by a long run. In fact, whilst I was still in the hospital, I was asking them incredibly weird questions about their name badges. because I wanted to understand like how, if there was anything important to them. And that's actually how I learned about the magnet
On the back.
backing that they use that you can buy, which is nice. But yeah, so like this is the previous version, which again is nice. Again, it's got the 3D printed cover with just like with the nice filament changes. And it's literally just one layer, 1.2 millimeter layer of PLA. That's the diffuser that's letting the light through. But I wasn't totally happy with this as a final version. So I made this one, which again, from the outside looks incredibly similar. In fact, the faceplates are interchangeable, which is nice. It means I can swap them out. But this one looks a little bit different on the inside.
Oh, fancy!
You got a custom board?
Yep. I designed a PCB, which has 114 1 millimeter squared individually addressable LEDs, which this might blind you.
Okay.
This one has a microcontroller and got beautiful animations.
Goodness
so
gracious.
This is a little bit of a step up.
You look, the smile on your face. It's just says all like that's channeling the feeling we makers have when we see our ideas come to life.
And this is the thing. I've never done this before. So this is my second ever PCB that I've ever designed, and the first one was considerably more simple. And I'd never done SMD soldering before. I'd never done surface mount soldering ever. And so of course, for the first time I do it, I'm going to solder 114 1 millimeter LEDs because that's just how everyone does this, right? Like that's just normal. And so, but like again, this is kind of how I do these things. I say what's something that's going to actually like interest me, what's going to hold my attention, and then I go for that. And usually the thing that holds my attention is something, again, completely absurd. So yes, I do love, though, I'm not going to lie, I have a tendency to do things that make people tell me that I can't. And it's very rarely in those words. It's very rarely, oh, you can't do that. It's typically, oh, well, that's really difficult. Maybe you should practice first, or like you might struggle to pull that off. Like it's usually coming from a place of concern. And I actually think what it is it's kind of a projected fear of failure. People don't like seeing other people fail either, I think. And so they want to protect me from failure and also themselves from my failure. The thing is that I'm not actually afraid of the failure. So like, it doesn't work. This just doesn't work. But also, depending on the person telling me, again, if it's like a friend or something, that it doesn't tend to yield this result. But if it's like a stranger telling me that I don't think you can do that thing, then usually the result is, well, I'm going to do it extra. Like I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it great. And I'm going to make you regret saying this. And hilariously enough, this is an excellent segue. Another project that I got told that repeatedly was the 3D printed forms for ceramics. That was that exactly like Karen said, watch me. Yeah, no, that's me. That's me most of the time. No, absolutely. As I was doing the kind of the research and development for that project, I was doing it in a communal ceramic studio because I live in London. I don't have my own ceramic studio. I am not independently wealthy. So I very much kind of I was very much in the testing and trying things phase, a.k.a. failing a lot. And I had a lot of people who were much more experienced with ceramics than I am, kind of be doing the whole like, So yeah, that vase that you can see there in that photo, I 100% was told repeatedly that this would not work. I mean, there it is. So clearly
Spite is a really good motivator. It really is.
It can be. But it's also, it's not just spite. It is also that desire to just like, I just want to see if I can. I just want to see if it works. So I spent 9 months to a year on this process, just really fine tuning it. Because again, going back to accessibility, I wanted this to be accessible. I wanted this to be, the whole idea was with this wasn't just to create a process that helped me with my work, but I wanted to create a process that made it easier for other people to access a medium that perhaps had been too intimidating to try maybe. And so it was, the entire motivation for this was accessibility, was taking an art and a medium and expanding it to people who are perhaps more comfortable in with technology, more comfortable with CAD and 3D printing than they are with clay. So yes, there's a whole video about it because, again, it was important to me that people be able to really understand the process and see how it works with two different shapes. Because again, I make this beautiful hex cup, and then there's also the wavy vase, which is also a thing that was a 3D printed thing. I have one set here, which is why I'm reaching back to grab it. It's got stuff in it. So I've also colored it with Copic markers, so it's all colorful. But this is the same shape. This is actually the same shape, but transformed into clay, which is like way more exciting if you think about it. Oh no, that's just me knocking things all over the place. It's fine. I am so good at that. But yeah, it very much was a thing that I was told, I don't think this is gonna work, like I don't, and I was just like, just let me try. And yeah, it was definitely good. So that was a very good experience with that. I am realizing,
and you got a grant from it, right?
Well, I got a grant before I did it.
Okay.
I basically I am fortunate enough to live in a country that has an arts grant program, and they offer different grants for different things. And so this was a specific grant for like exploration. And so I pitched to them. I was like, these are some things I'd like to do. And admittedly, it didn't end up being exactly the things I had said I was going to do. Like the knee vases that are on the webpage were not planned because I also didn't plan on breaking my leg. So like that kind of just happened. That wasn't part of my plan. But the 3D printed forms, that was a thing that I had in mind from the beginning. So yes, that was a funded project, and which makes it all the better for sharing for free. Like my time was compensated. So I want to be able to give this stuff away. Yeah, those are my beautiful knees. which are all porcelain, by the way. But like the original 3D printed piece that I used to make the mold from is right here.
Is that I apologize for missing this detail. Is that based off a CAT scan of your actual knee and the injury?
You got it.
All right. Well, there you go.
Yeah, and you can see the
actual
see the break, which is it's significant. It's a real doozy of a break. But this is actually PVB on this print because I wanted to be able to smooth it to get rid of the layer lines, and it was perfect for this.
Okay. Which
I think is actually a very good transition into actually talking about slicing.
Yes, please do.
Sure.
I am so sorry.
No. This is, we usually it's community time and slicing time, so we do like to have you have your time to shine.
Admittedly, this is filthy. Like it didn't originally look like this. It's very dirty because I made a plaster mold from it, so it's like it's definitely a bit messy. Though the cartilage so to speak, the stuff in between the joints is actually not 3D printed. It is it's a moldable thermoplastic.
Oh, okay.
Which was perfect for this. Yeah, it's the kind that you like, just you put its little pellets and you put it in like hot water and they melt into a squishy kind of dough, and then you can shape, you can kind of sculpt with it, and then it hardens and turns back into a hard plastic. But you can actually remelt it as many times as you like.
Nice.
But yes, PVB is a little finicky, but it is a very interesting material, and it's one that I'm increasingly coming to love. It just requires, I think, some patience that I don't always have.
What kind of things did you learn in your process for slicing for PVB?
So fortunately, I was gonna say, this is actually going to be slightly more boring on the slicing side. I feel like slicing wise, it didn't require a ton of kind of changing of settings. I found that PVB prints very similar to PLA. I definitely think slicing a little cooler, like we're not talking much, like maybe 5 degrees, little cooler than PLA can work well. Where it becomes difficult is actually in the post-processing, because you use IPA to smooth it, and it's a chemical.
Alcohol.
Sorry?
Isopropyl alcohol.
Yes. And the way it works is it's basically melting the filament. It is dissolving the chemical bonds in the filament, and it's melting it. So it becomes very sticky and tacky on the outside. And if you do it for long enough, you can get actually some very good smooth results. Again, I'm not sure how well, if my camera will actually, I have to hide or it wants to focus on my face. See, there we go. So yeah, so you can actually see, like, there's pretty much no layer lines. And I didn't do any sanding because that would actually get rid of the kind of organic nature of the bone. So the PVB very much kind of dissolves the outer layers of the print, and it kind of melts together. And when it hardens, you get something that's a little bit smoother. The thing that I didn't initially understand that I now do is that after it absorbs, like it'll kind of stop being tacky after about an hour. Yes, the IPA mist can be messy and it's tricky to stop at the correct time. That is actually that has also been my experience, because yeah, if you melt too much, it'll kind of melt all the way through. Or you might get air that's released from the print that will turn into bubbles and stuff like that. So like, yeah, figuring out exactly the right point is definitely tricky. But then you also have to just leave it alone for a few days at least, because it off gases.
You have to be patient. You have to be patient. You have to leave it for a few days. That would be tough.
How'd you learn that?
The hard way.
Yeah.
Actually, I learned it. I didn't fully absorb it, but I technically learned it with my very first attempt at PVB, which was to create an eyeball for a Terrico. It's a cosplay prop. It's a little robot egg creature. And I wanted to print the eye in PVB so that it would be smooth, and then I was going to paint it. I painted it before it was done off gassing.
Oh, okay.
So it was like, why is it all bubbly and weird? What's going on? Oh, I see.
There you go.
But yeah, but I've also gotten fingernails and made dents and things, because again, it'll stay a little soft. And you really got to give it. That's the thing. The way I approach it now is just leave it alone. Don't touch it for like a week, and then just forget about it. Come back in a week, and then it'll be fine. Because like it's nice and hard now. Like once it finishes off gassing, it's great. Then there's no problem. But it is again, lessons were learned. Lessons were learned. I was gonna say, I definitely feel like a potential tip. I was gonna say, I see NLTMW, I said that out loud, well done me, mentioned that there's an elephant foot residue that needs to be trimmed off at the base. A trick that I also found that works, actually two potential ways to approach this. One is actually to put like masking tape on the base of the print so that bit doesn't melt. So you get a harder edge, or alternatively, print the first couple of layers in PLA and then swap.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
And then your base won't melt.
Yeah.
And you'll get a harder edge. Because like it was a problem I had with this one actually. The bottom got all funky, and so you can see I used some of the moldable thermoplastic to make a better base because it had gotten incredibly wonky and soft. So like, yeah, learn from my mistakes.
That is a neat little hack, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely one that I was like, yeah, that would make things easier. Yeah. What do you know? Because again, it prints at a very similar temperature to PLA, so you can kind of swap them without having too much issue.
Wow. And you know, in talking about slicing, do you have any questions, Becky? I don't want to just jump in on this.
Well, eventually we're going to talk about slowing things down because we're in an age of high-speed printers and they're going faster and faster and faster. But I found printing one of Allie's designs that it was advantageous to slow it down.
Wow.
Oh yes.
Are we ready for that topic, or do we want to?
Okay. No, absolutely. And the twisty vase is such a good example of a print that will not be happy fast because it's just so many small pieces that are not connected.
Let me pull it up here.
And they get real wobbly. They get real wobbly if you go fast. Patience like absolutely rewards you with this one. And your print came out so beautiful as well. I love the
I did have a fail first.
Like the dual color look is so good, but it is definitely that thing that you are better off printing it slowly, and because if not, I've definitely had ones where like the pieces would come out and they'd be like slightly off, and I was like, oh god, that's
this is
my
final version, which I had pulled it off. The person slicer was naturally, it was noticing with the, I guess, overhangs or whatnot. Naturally, it was having about like 22 millimeters per second, and I changed it down to 50%. I think right about here. I think to let it get to this final stage. And I think I do have a fail. When I didn't get a picture of the fail. Oh no, here it is.
Oh no.
Because at first I just thought, let's see, you know.
Oh, there we go.
And this is misleading. This first one was on the Bamboo Mini, and you know, which of course goes super fast. And at first,
you can see the overhangs too.
Yeah, Allie had recommended, if I can find it, it was right. It was right here on it. Print this slow, all caps, way slower than you probably think it needs to be. But you know, you don't know. And the Bamboo Mini's so fast, anyways. And so when I first started printing, I did a 70%, and I could see these first little rungs here. And I'm like, oh, it's fine. I thought it was gonna be like a cooling issue, you know, like, oh, the layers didn't have time to cool, so they're getting messy. These things are unsupported. So when you get higher and higher, they start moving. And you know, I noticed that it started moving. I'm like, I wonder if we should do something about that. But before I could, it was done. One of them cracked out of place. So I went ahead and followed the advice and slowed it down. And the other thing that may be helpful, the Bamboo Mini, I think, has the Z-hop turned off by default. Can I grab? Let me see if I can get this out here.
Definitely need Z-hop on.
Allie, are you suggesting that you keep Z-hop or get rid of Z-hop?
No, keep it. You absolutely, because you definitely run the risk of the nozzle. Like you can even see it here. Like see how it kind of moves each little rung a tiny bit when it prints. Without Z-hop,
I've had nightmares of that happening. Yes.
It's definitely Z-hop is definitely helpful here. But again, slow, like Z hop and not and fast is still not going to really, it's not really going to work either.
Yeah,
Is this proto pasta mermaid's tail?
Yes, this is totally, I love, because also I found that filament does really well with overhangs.
It's also a beautiful filament. I'm such a filament nerd. Like I love color. So like I feel I'm just pleased I got it right, you know.
You can identify them in the wild.
I will say, you know, this is about slicing, but I changed these speeds right on the LCD of the printer. So I didn't really update my slice at all for it.
But of course, you can do this in the slicer. I am very much a pro having lots of profiles. In fact, actually, I am happy to show kind of what my slicer looks like. So let's get in here. Share screen. Where are you? Oh, window. Here we go. Here we go. Found it. Can you see this?
Yes. I'll make it.
All right. So obviously I have more than one printer. So I've got multiple printer profiles, but like I have individual printer profiles for different nozzles. I have them for different types of materials. Like you can see here, I've got a whole unique one for the PVB, for the poly smooth. As well as I have the most for my Prusa Mark III S because it's the printer I've had the longest. But like up here, what we've got, because I use Prusa Slicer for microLED as well. I just could say there's some very old ones from when it was still a Bowden and before I upgraded it to the Hemera. But then I've got ones for TPU. I've got ones for specific types of TPU because Recreus is a brand of TPU. And so like I've got ones for when I do time lapses. That's a whole unique printer profile.
All right.
Absolutely. And so like this will be, if I need to change settings like strength, like around kind of like retraction and Z hop, that's obviously going to be a printer profile. And so I will just create a unique printer profile. I have only a few for my Mark IV because I haven't done a ton of stuff, but even there, yeah, you can see I've got a poly smooth. And what is different about my poly smooth?
Oh, hey, actually, I just noticed. I think your drop downs aren't showing, so you may want to.
Oh, are they not?
Share the entire screen instead of, if you're comfortable with it, instead of the.
Oh, that's so frustrating that you can't see the drop downs, huh? Bizarre. Let me do that then. Let me switch the screen sharing to one that will show it. Entire screen. Here we go. Okay. So now, hopefully, let's go find out. Can you see the drop down?
There we go. Yes.
Amazing. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I was going on for ages and y'all couldn't see it. Yeah, here's the list.
Revo.
The whole list. Yeah. Yeah, because I've changed nozzle types over time. It's all there's a lot of stuff here.
These profiles tell a story too, because for every profile that you've gotten right, I would estimate at least 3 iterations until it got there.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. There's usually, and to be fair, sometimes I'm not always the best at like clearly these two are probably the same. I can really delete one of them. I'm not always the best at cleaning house, so to speak.
Do you also save your project files too, or your?
No.
Okay.
I do not. Unless there's something very special. The profiles are it. The profiles are what I save. But like, so we were talking about the PVB earlier, and I was saying, oh, I don't know that I change a whole lot, and that's clearly a lie. I just couldn't remember. So like in here, you can see the things that I've changed. So it's a different retraction length. I've changed the deretract. There's a deretraction extra length because sometimes I get little gaps at the start. So I can kind of fix that. And then I've changed them and will travel after retraction as well. So not a ton of things here, but then obviously over in print settings is where things also get unique settings. So like, again, I've got a poly smooth setting for 0.1 millimeters. I've got, admittedly, I have way less profiles for my Mark IV because the Mark IV I have found to be just a lot more forgiving. It seems to just be a lot happier. But again, I've got a few. These are, in fact, TPU. So Recreus is a company in Spain that they make a handful of filaments, but they make incredible elastomers. They make incredible flexible filaments, and they make TPU that goes to a shore hardness that nobody else has done. They have like their most common one is 82A, which is way softer than most that you'll find. The standard that you'll find with TPU for FDM 3D printing will be 90 or 95A, which is harder. Higher numbers are harder. Lower numbers are softer. So 70A is incredibly soft, and they do a 60A as well, which I have not personally tackled, and frankly, I am afraid to, because the 70A nearly killed me.
What kind of things did you have to make happen in order for the 70A to work out?
So the 70A, oops, that's the wrong one. The 70A. The 70A requires a lot, like basically a lot of things being very carefully tweaked. So most, like this page looks, the layers and perimeters looks pretty normal. Speed is obviously where things.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That's
so.
Talk about slowing down.
Yes, you need to go phenomenally slow. With these things, and like I could maybe even go slower, and honestly in the filament settings I probably have where's the 70A? I'm not seeing it, but if I just go to the 82A, it'll probably still get the point across. I should have, so like I've definitely got like the cooling is kind of, actually this one is not set particularly unique. Sometimes with TPU, I will have it where it slows down. Nope, maybe not. I might be here we go. Here's one that does like it will enable the fan if it takes less than 50 seconds, and it will slow down if it's less than 50 seconds, because again,
oh my goodness,
you need slow. So like with the 70A, you really got to go slow. And hilariously enough, the problem with this level of softness of filament is not so much that it will clog your nozzle. It will clog your extruder.
Yeah. Or twist it up in the extruder and like wrap around because it's so soft.
Yep. It will get basically, if there is, and this is the reason why they say that it's a lot harder to print TPU with a Bowden than a direct drive, because again, the filament is squishy, it's wiggly, and so it needs to have the most direct path to the hot end as possible, and as little chance as possible to have space to wiggle away. And most direct drive 3D printers will have a little bit of space. Like it's not like a flush. It's not flush between the extruder gears and the hot end. There's usually like a couple millimeters maybe of space. That's enough. That's enough. And again, I have on my Series Tennis Pro, I have a Chimera. And Chimeras.
You would have to slow down to use that Chimera too. That thing is
yes. You absolutely do. But the Chimera is considered one of the best for TPU because again, there's so little space. There's so little space between the extruder gears and the mouth for the hot end, and yet
it jams up.
And yet that 70A would somehow escape and wrap itself around, and I was like, oh my god.
Okay.
So you really so these numbers are not an exaggeration. Like, you need to go slow, and like, you are obviously welcome to try faster at your own risk.
I definitely appreciate you taking the opportunity to fail on our behalf.
Yeah,
Take that
absolutely.
advice.
I'm trying to see if there's anything else particularly special about this. It's mostly just the speed. It really is. Like, for flexibles, it really is about the speed. Again, there are other things, like you need to sometimes go a little hotter. Like I do 230 for the Ninja Flex, which is an 85A. And I'm not 220 though for the 82A Filaflex. Again, these are very much things that I feel like you really do have to play around with. Oh, extrusion multiplier. It's higher. 1.2. Right. Because again, you are kind of working against physics here a little bit. So you want to tell it to like push a little more, push a little harder. And that this often will prevent the very prevalent under extrusion you'll get with TPUs and stuff like that. So it is definitely one of those, you'll be glad you did it. You'll be glad you did it. But again, I feel like the main thing, I'm just gonna hop back out of this for a moment. I feel like the main thing is simply that you really do have to go slower than you think. It's very much like I feel like my recommendation specifically for TPU is try it. Because not all TPUs play the same. I have had the Polymaker TPU, which is again a 90A. I can actually print at surprisingly high speeds, and it prints well. But then other ones will absolutely go to bits. Another good tip for printers that have an idler screw, like the Mark III's and other slightly older models, like again the Mark IV, this is not an issue. But for both my Creality and the Mark III's, there's a tension. A tension on the filament.
Drive. These are non-dual drive extruders you're talking about. As you said, the screw idler versus two gears driving at the same time.
Yes.
Okay, great. Just making sure.
If you have that style of extruder, loosening the idler actually helps.
Completely not counterintuitive. Completely counterintuitive. Thank you for that.
Well, and it's one of those things that if you have too strong a grip, that's actually where it squirts out the side, like, so by loosening it up a bit, I feel like for some reason that seems to be the magic zone where it goes, it's got enough force to push through, but not too much to make it try to escape. I don't know entirely like why this seems to really do the trick, because usually historically when I was having issues printing flexibles, it would be that I would just go and I would loosen the idler a little bit, to the point where I actually know visually how far the screw needs to be out on the Mark III's. Like, like I remember like visually about where it should be. I printed a lot of TPU. It's great, honestly. It's such a fun material. And you can do so many amazing things with it.
You do your cosplay with TPU? Is that what I'm picking up on?
I actually haven't done much. I was gonna say I have over here. I was gonna say this is actually Vario Short TPU, which is the foaming kind. So think like the foaming PLA, but it's flexible. So it ends up coming out a little bit like Ava foam, and this is actually a bracelet.
Nice.
So, but I've not actually done a ton of TPU for cosplay. I do have, I was gonna say, I have this lovely headband that is, it's all TPU that I've colored. And again, it's very flexible. It's very squish. But I haven't done as much for cosplay yet. Okay. Like, it's always a yet. Like,
yes, of course. Yeah,
I'll get there. But I do love TPU for other things. So I definitely feel like it's got a lot of excellent uses. Good. I'm a fan.
Well, you definitely have helped me to gain a greater appreciation for it. That's for sure.
But yeah, you got to go slow. You got to go
slow things down.
Be patient.
Oh, yes.
Be super duper patient. Yep.
Absolutely. But you know what? It's worth it because the stuff you get from going slow, whether it is like Twisty Vase or it is something like that has this kind of like material qualities to it, like it's worth it. It's worth it. Just be patient. All you speed demons, be patient.
Very good advice.
Back in my day, we didn't have no input shaping.
I already think about that. Yeah, with the input shaping or the auto bed leveling and the filament sensors and the restarting when the print pauses. Like that's, we've come
Admittedly,
so far.
Some of these are quality of life things that I definitely could not go back on.
Yeah.
Filament sensors, especially, Jesus, like I can't imagine not having the printer tell me, "Hey, Chucklehead, you forgot to read, like you forgot to swap filament, and now it's gone. Like you gotta do something." I feel as though I have like a like an ingrained thing for like the sound the Prusa makes when it's out of filament, or when there's a filament change, because like it definitely makes like a pretty good beep. It's a pretty solid beep. And I feel as though I'm tuned to that. So sometimes I hear something, I'm like, do I have to change filament? like, oh, I there's no 3D printers running. I'm just imagining things now.
It's gotten into your blood.
Oh, it's in there. It's in there really good. So I'm trying to think if there was any other like slicer specific things. Though, I suppose printing with something like this VarioShore is also a different kettle of fish than printing something like this. This all, like, I don't know if you noticed, but I had my own profiles for the VarioShore specifically, because as much as it is a TPU, it definitely wants its own settings. So don't worry, it's still super slow. Still super slow though.
There's the one thing about Allie that just came to mind is that like all these profiles that you've got, there's a isn't there a repository or some kind of place where somebody's making recommendations for different filaments, speed, temperature, and stuff like that? Isn't there a repository for that out there, Vicky?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. Okay. I know, like in the past, the makers have shared theirs. I think back in the day, I was using a profile from Uncle Jesse and a profile from Joel Telling, but yeah, I'm not sure.
I thought there was one, but
to my knowledge, I'm not aware of one.
Okay.
What you can do, again, with Prusa Slicer particularly, you can export configuration files. But what I've seen people do is that they will create they'll set up a profile and they'll throw in a calibration cube. And then they will save that as a 3MF. And it will save all of the settings.
Got it.
And then they'll put that up on printables or something. And basically what you're doing is you're just then importing the settings. So you import it, and then you can delete the calibration cube and save the profile as a new profile on your computer, on your local machine. That works, and people do that.
Okay.
But that's the only way I've seen folks sharing printing profiles. And I've seen this for other slicers as well. Like I use, much to my initial chagrin, I think I'm over it now, but I use Bamboo Labs X1Cs at work. And I had my reservations. That's a whole other conversation. I'm more or less used to them now. But I use Orca Slicer for using the X1Cs.
There you go.
Because it is more pre-configured for the Bamboo Labs printers, and I am kind of like, I am less desiring to have to completely create a bunch of really custom stuff in Prusa Slicer to use for the Bamboos. So, though of course I've not gone for just the standard. I've not just gone with the Bamboo Slicer or Bamboo Studio or whatever they call it. I was like, what else is there? And then I found Orca Slicer, which is obviously an open source fork. And I was like, this sounds more my speed.
Yes,
anyway, though,
I can see
people do the exact same thing, where they will upload a model somewhere with a profile, and then you import it, you get the profile, and you can delete the model and import your own model. So it's not just a Prusa specific thing. Yes. Yeah. No, there is. Sometimes you get lucky. Like, again, I feel like the Mark IV, a lot of the provided profiles have been pretty decent, but I don't know that I ever have not done some tweaking. There's always some tweaking. And actually, I realized that it's unrelated to TPU and it's unrelated to speed, but it is a setting in the slicer that most people never touch and never use. And I actually think it is an incredibly useful thing to be aware of, to be able to change, to alter your prints. Would y'all like?
Are you going to share screen again?
It's a top tip. It's an Allie top tip. Yes, it is definitely, again, unrelated to speed, unrelated to TPU, but related to just slicing. All right, so I can actually just go to any of my profiles, really. It doesn't matter. In Prusa Slicer, specifically, under Advanced, you have your extrusion width.
Yes.
People don't tend to touch this, and that is an oversight. This is actually very powerful. These settings are incredibly powerful because they have an intense impact on the detail and quality of, well, not just your layer lines, but of your of details in the Z height. So say you have like embossed letters or numbers on the outside of something that are perhaps coming out slightly poor quality. If you turn down your external perimeters and potentially the perimeters as well to 0.4 with a 0.4 nozzle, because they are probably set as a default of 0.5. If you turn them down to 0.4, 0.4 is still a perfectly safe extrusion width for a 0.4 nozzle, but you will suddenly get more detail and clarity in the details in the Z height. Conversely, if you want a print to be faster, you don't necessarily have details in the Z height that you care about. In addition to increasing layer height, you can also increase extrusion width. And you'd be surprised, it actually makes your prints faster because you're covering more, the printer is able to kind of cover ground faster because the extrusions are thicker. So depending on your needs, you can alter these settings to suit what you're trying to do. I usually turn them down for a 0.4 nozzle because I usually want more detail. But for a 0.6 nozzle, I might turn it up. And that's another thing that admittedly I don't need to share there's nothing to show. Something to be aware of both with your layer height and your extrusion width is that these things should fall within a range of your nozzle size. So for the rule of thumb for layer height is that it should be no more than. Sorry, I trying to think of how to express this. This number is words. Sorry.
0.8 times your opening. So if you have a 0.4 nozzle, 0.8 times 0.4, 0.32,
and no smaller than 0.2. So I guess that's 20% and 80%. These were the words I was looking for. So you want basically
percent
in the 20 to 80%. Or 0.2 to 0.8. These both work. Of your nozzle size for layer height. This is an excellent rule of thumb. Too small and your nozzle is more likely to clog. Too big and probably same problem. With extrusion width, you have it's a slightly different set of numbers. Obviously, you can safely do 100% of the size. So if it's a 0.4 nozzle, a 0.4 extrusion, up to, I believe it is 150%. So if it's a 0.4 nozzle, you can do 0.6 extrusion.
Yeah.
In reality, you can probably go a little less. So you could probably push to 0.38 with a 0.4 nozzle. However, your mileage may vary. 0.4, safe. 0.4 nozzle, 0.4 extrusion, safe. You can try and push it to, again, probably like 90% of the nozzle size. And you might find good results. You might have to, again, alter your speeds to make this successful. But I don't tend to mess with it for a very good reason. And that reason is that I have hundreds of nozzles. That's an exaggeration. But I do have,
very good reason.
I have 20 nozzles that are mostly different. Like there's some duplicates, but I have nozzles. I have V6 style nozzles, right? So being specific here, I have V6 style nozzles. From 0.1 all the way to 1.8.
1.8. The only thing about the one,
you'll be ready to print in the cocoa press. Because you already have all the experience with the bigger nozzles.
Yeah.
Well, as to say, the bigger nozzle, the 1.8 is a CHT nozzle, which means that it actually splits the filament internally, and then recombines it, which is the only way you are able to get a 1.8 millimeter nozzle with 1.75 millimeter filament. You can actually fit the filament in the hole at the end of the nozzle.
Thank you for pointing that out.
It's nuts. But yeah. I have everything from 0.1 to 1.8. It is a huge range. And so instead of messing with the extrusion width, I'll just use a smaller nozzle.
Good point.
Yeah.
No,
at least for me, that's a good method.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Oh my goodness. I feel as though I made y'all run longer than you usually do.
Oh, no. This is fine.
Yes,
because luckily we're meeting with you early in our time zone, so it's not like my bedtime's being extended or anything.
I was gonna say it's definitely approaching that time for me. It's coming up on 10:30 p.m. In British summertime, BST. Oh no! It seems that Jeff had a bad experience with the 1.4 Revo. I don't even have. I think my biggest Revo nozzle is 0.8. I don't know that. I didn't even know they made them that big. Oh my god! But yeah, the CHTs are slightly unusual. And to be fair, in my defense, I haven't actually used the 1.8. I have it. I've never touched it.
Oh, well, there you go. It's good to have around, though.
I have printed up to 1.2, though. Yeah. I think the highest I've done is a 0.75 nozzle.
I think this might be it.
There we go. Beautiful.
This is my bin. This is my rubbish bin in my office. And it is just a vase print. And I think this is 1.2. I think this was the 1.2 nozzle. It was either that or a 1, but it's a beautiful. I think this is protopasta as well, actually.
Looks like a 6-hour print right there.
I mean, it probably
maybe
actually
the Citrus Sunrise protopasta.
I think it is. Yeah. Sunrise sounds familiar, but yeah, it was one of those, and this was not done on the Prusa, mind you. That was done on the Creality. That's too big for the Prusa.
Yes.
And I also have a Volcano hot end on the Creality, which also helps with the large prints and the large nozzles.
There you go.
Yeah, it was probably about 6 hours because the Creality is incredibly slow. It's older, it's an older machine. It's not a new machine by any means. And even with the modifications, it's still very slow. Ooh, it's a high flow Revo. Oh, I see.
Oh, I throw that up there.
Cool. Thank you, Jeff. Like I wasn't actually aware of these, which I feel like makes me very, very naughty because I have personal connections with E3D. So I'm like, oh no, I missed this. I've been busy. I'm so sorry. I guess I'm just gonna have to get some. I clearly don't have enough nozzles.
Not yet. Well, I mean, they're going to keep coming out with new ones, new materials, new properties, new sizes.
Yep. No, at least
new configurations.
A couple of mine are the Nozzle X fancy nozzles that actually have served me very well over the years. I have no complaints. I've used them with everything, and they've always been A+. So, but yeah, it is. Admittedly, I feel like it's a whole other conversation of 3D printing obsession. Is many nozzles.
So next year when we do the how would you nozzle that, maybe we'll have you back.
Yeah, how would you which nozzle would you use for this? And again, I feel like I have at least an hour's worth of opinions on that too, probably. Yeah.
More to talk about, which is great.
You know what? I'm very happy to have reached a point where I feel like I am able to like safely have opinions about 3D printing, because I definitely for a while felt very much like, oh, I don't know anything. Everyone else knows more than me. I'm not qualified to have an opinion.
The imposter syndrome, kind of.
Yeah. But then something happened and time passed, and I did a lot of 3D printing, and now I have people talking to me like I am the expert in 3D printing, and I'm like, oh, when did that happen? when was this? Where was I when that happened?
That's growth right there. That's growth. That's beautiful.
It's great, and I take a great deal of pride in it, particularly when I can have a conversation with somebody who is generally considered an expert in their field in making, like Adam Savage, and have him defer to me in matters of 3D printing and be like, yes. I think I have made it now. I am now a 3D printing person of repute. 3D printing person of repute.
For sure.
Something to aspire to. Yeah.
So 3D printer of repute. What's next for you? I hear you have some travel coming up.
Yes, in fact, I have been really awful talking about it because I have been so busy lately. It's basically been almost nonstop events since I was able to walk again, because I injured my back in March and was basically out flat for 2 months. And then like as soon as like things were a bit better, I was like, all right, it's time to do stuff. So I had Maker Central, which was an incredible local UK event, which was a ton of fun. And I got to meet some really cool people there. And then 2 weeks later, a.k.a. Not last weekend, but the weekend before, was another really cool UK-based event called EMF, or Electromagnetic Field, which was a kind of making grassroots, open source-esque event in a literal field that is entirely run by volunteers and is amazing. Like, I cannot actually express how impressive the infrastructure for this event was. We had 40 gigabits down in a field. Like, I'm just absorb that. Like, it's amazing. It's amazing. But now, this next weekend, I'm going to be in San Francisco for Open Sauce. And I'm really excited about that. I'm really looking forward to it. It was a bit of a last minute thing because, again, with my injury, I wasn't quite sure if I'd be able to go. And then things fortunately seemed to fix themselves in time. And so I was like, okay, I can go. So I will be at that. And then I'm going to, I think, not have any events for the rest of the summer, they say uncertainly, until September, which is not exactly a maker event, but is one of my favorite conventions, which is Dragon Con. Which, for those of you not familiar with Dragon Con, it is one of the largest kind of like open-ended, like nerdy conventions in the world. Like sci-fi, fantasy, video games, anime, it's everything. It's literally everything. You name it, there's some sort of representation there. It has been going on literally as long as I've been alive, which is probably more years than you think. And yeah, that's it. It is in Atlanta, Georgia, Labor Day weekend every year. And wow. It brings in close to 100,000 people. It takes over the city of Atlanta, and it is a hell of an event. As you can see, cosplay is such an intense part of it, which is definitely one of the things I go for. I always take a couple of costumes. I always try to like create something interesting and new to take. It's going to be a bit of a close one for this year. I have a costume that I would like to do that absolutely also involves LEDs, and wigs. But I'm gonna end up having like 2 months to do it, so we'll see if it ends up happening. But those are kind of, so open source this weekend, and then nothing again until Dragon Con probably. But then after that, who knows? Like I am enjoying I very much enjoy getting to meet people. I love being able to take, and wear a name badge that both tells people who I am and also what I do. And it will be something I think that comes with me now to all future events. So like, you can definitely, the way I say it is, you can find me because I'll be the one with the name badge that you can see from space. Like, it's very bright, but yeah, I'm very much excited to get to continue to do these things and talk to people, and hopefully continue to demystify things, demystify design, demystify 3D printing, demystify electronics, and just show that people can do the thing, that you can do the thing. Even if you've never done the thing before, you can do the thing. You might have to try a few times.
And even if people are skeptical that you can do it, you can do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's better. If they're skeptical, then absolutely you should do the thing so you can prove them wrong. But it is my firm, deeply held belief that every single person on this planet has the capacity to be creative and to express themselves as such. And some people, unfortunately, thanks to people in their past perhaps telling them otherwise, they just need to be reassured otherwise. And so I think that has rapidly become one of my missions, is to, I like to think of myself as the anti-gatekeeper. Not just not gatekeeping. That's not enough. I want to break down the gates. Like, this is an important thing. I want to actively dismantle the gates so that people can feel welcome. That's it. That's a big one. Thank you, Britt.
Yeah. And did you ever read anything by Kurt Vonnegut Jr., who wrote Slaughterhouse-5 and Katz Creates?
I'm familiar, but I have not. I have not read them.
One of the things that he wrote about a lot and spoke about, I got to go see him speak one day, is the importance of practicing an art just for yourself, for doing it. And when we went to see him speak, he challenged all of us to go home and write a poem or do something, a drawing, just for ourselves, and throw it away, just the act. So the quote that resonates with me is the practicing an art, no matter how well or how poorly, is a way to make your soul grow. And so gatekeeper, gate basher, or not gatekeeper, anti-gatekeeper,
yeah.
You are empowering people to make their souls grow.
And the thing is too, is that is literally how you get better at something, is by doing it. Like, you will never get better at it if you tell yourself that you can't do it, and so you don't. Like, that you will go nowhere with that. But if you literally just do the thing, no matter how bad, that moves the needle forward. Every single time you do a thing, it moves the needle forward. And again, you can throw it away, you can delete it, it doesn't matter what it's for. It can be for you, it can be for someone else, it can be for nothing. It doesn't matter. It all moves the needle forward, and it all improves you. Yeah, I like that. That's really good. I think that his advice was very good. That was very good advice.
Excellent.
Yes, and then also I wanted to. I never watched the show Adventure Time, but there's a quote that resonates with me. Oh, you know where I'm going?
Well,
Sucking
probably
at something is the first step of being kind of good at something. So if I'm out with my kids and we go to like a ninja course and there's like a warped wall and I'm going to try it in front of a whole bunch of kids, I think, well, sucking at something is the first step of being kind of good at something.
Admittedly, Adventure Time is one of my favorite TV shows, and it is full of remarkably profound quotes like that. I'm actually surprised that BMO, I think, is the one thing that we didn't talk about at all today and didn't show off, because one of my projects is I remade BMO. I made a life-size BMO that actually is an Octoprint server that drives my Creality. So it is BMO Octoprint, basically, is the name of the project officially. But it very much BMO Octoprint. It is a bit of a tongue twister. Very much came from a place of, one, I needed a case for a Raspberry Pi for an Octoprint server. Two, I freaking love Adventure Time, and the idea of having a BMO in my office really was just kind of like, yeah, let's do that. And BMO says nice things to me, and Ken, for you as well, because BMO is, again, fully open source. BMO says nice things because, again, there's so many like wonderful things in the show that are surprisingly profound. So yeah, it is an amazing show. I love that. I love
you share your behind the scenes drawings, and yeah.
BMO is complicated to work out, so I definitely had to do. I don't actually sketch as much as I should. I'm a bit of a bad art student in that way.
Look how happy.
Yeah. And that was before BMO even like powered on or did anything. That was just getting the prints done. I was just like, heck yeah. Because it was a lot of printing. It's a lot of printing. But worth it. And again, also accessible design. BMO is fully disassemblable. No glue.
No glue.
No glue. Only press fits and screws.
A few M3 bolts and everything can be taken apart. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. And as well, I made an effort to make all the angles that you put, like you have to like hold a screwdriver to drive the screws in, were not uncomfortable, because that's the thing. Sometimes they can be quite uncomfortable, and like I admittedly I do have some joint problems, and so it's kind of like I don't want it to hurt to put together. I don't want it to hurt for other people to put together. So it's as much as I was able to. I tried to make it as accessible as possible. Though you do need a big printer for this one. BMO's big baby.
Right. Thanks for that update. Well, something to talk about maybe on a follow-up conversation or another episode, because I was impressed by that BMO as well.
BMO is again a precious angel, and definitely one of my favorite projects. It definitely makes me happy. So thank you for that. And again, a lot of work went into BMO to try and make it be something. It's funny actually, because I've had some people tell me that they've made BMO with their kids, and that makes me really happy. That it's accessible enough to do with the kids. Like, obviously they need help. Like, it's not by themselves, obviously, but like it's not beyond them to understand. So I think that's great.
Wonderful. Well, I think that you are officially our longest episode.
Like, admittedly, I do that sometimes. I feel like I have a history of doing that on other podcasts, though at least we're only an hour and 30 in and not close to 4. Pretty sure I have been on a podcast that lasted that long, and I because I got to work tomorrow. So
Karen in our chat, I think, did a 3.5 hour stream last week. Karen,
it's definitely long. I think this is more reasonable, but also I think it is also my bedtime, probably, or getting close to it. So.
We should probably, and the good news is, a lot of times behind the scenes, everybody might be a little nervous before our live stream, so I don't really eat dinner. I'm not going to have this problem today because the live stream's behind me.
There you go.
Full dinner
enjoyment.
Maybe dessert.
Excellent. Is there any final questions that y'all have, or anyone in the audience have for me before before we sign off for the day, for the night, for the month. I don't know. I'm not sure. Just in case. But of course, if you come up with something later, you're very welcome to poke me on social media and ask your question. I'm very friendly. I promise I don't bite. You should definitely follow me on your social media of choice. I'm on most of them. I'm not on Mastodon. I was gonna say it's the one, if only because time. I don't quite have the time to add that one in yet. Give it time. But I am most places, and I'm definitely friendly. I don't know if I have a favorite social media anymore. It used to be Twitter. It's not.
You are
anymore.
so fast on the chat. You're like one with the chat.
just absolutely laser focus on it. I don't know. I think it's a coincidence, really, that I'm catching some good stuff in it. It used to be Twitter. It's not anymore. I have grief with everything. I think. I don't know if I have a favorite social media platform anymore, but I am still on Twitter. I do still use it. I'm a little more grumpy about it than I was before.
It'll change. It'll change.
I'm not going to jinx it. I'm just going to cross my fingers.
All right.
All right.
Does it feel like we're coming to a natural end for Allie's bedtime?
I think so.
Thank you so much for joining us, Allie.
Everybody, as usual, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you, Allie. I had high expectations for you coming in, and you exceeded them. Chat, viewers, thank you so much. Our community members, thank you for coming and being so engaged, especially when we mixed up the time with you. How will you slice it? How would you slice that is live on Tuesdays that are prime numbers. The next prime number is going to be July 2nd, and we'll probably be back at our usual 8 p.m. time. I'll let you know. And I'll be remote. I'll be coming to you from Virginia Beach, so hopefully I'll have a good internet connection.
Wonderful.
Also, fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Allie, have a great trip to Open Sauce and Dragon Con, right?
Thank you very much. I will. I am sure it will be excellent.
Thank you for everything you do for the people who are watching and their community. All right.
Absolutely.
Any last words, Lawrence?
No, you covered everything, Vicki. Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you,
Allie, anything else?
for joining us. It's been great.
Nah, I am good. Have a great night, everyone. And I will see you soon, hopefully.
Bye.